Let me start with a confession. For a very long time, ballet made me feel like I was doing math in a language that I technically understood, but emotionally resented. I knew the steps, I knew the corrections, I knew the words. Turn out, pull up, use your plie, point your foot, and yet my body kept asking a very quiet but persistent question. Why does this feel so hard when it looks so easy on everyone else? If you've ever had that thought, you are not bad at ballet. You're just missing the operating system. Because here's the thing no one really ever explains to adults. Ballet is not just built on positions. It's built on movement, logic. And that logic is rotation as expressed through spirals. Once you see it, ballet stops feeling like a list of rules and starts behaving like a system that actually wants to help you. Most adult dancers are taught like this. Here's first position. Here's plié. Here's tendu. Here's turnout. Please assemble yourself correctly, like a bad IKEA catalog. In case you haven't noticed, ballet doesn't come in a flat pack, guys. It would be a bit like teaching someone to play chess by naming the pieces and then saying, good luck. Adults learn ballet by trying to control outcomes. So when an adult hears, use your turnout, what they usually do is lock everything down and hope for the best. When something locks into place, something else compensates. And that's when ballet starts to feel stiff, disconnected, and exhausting. Not because you're weak, but because you're fighting physics with willpower. Here's your first big shift, guys. Rotation, turnout, is not a position. It's not something you set, clamp onto, and carry around with you like an emotional support animal. Rotation is a relationship between your femur and your hip socket, between your pelvis and your spine, and between your foot and the floor. And most importantly, between intention and direction. First, let's start with how external rotation actually occurs at the hip. External rotation of the femur, the top bone here, occurs at the acetabulofemoral joint, so right in here. Primary contributors are your deep external rotators, your piriformis, your obturator internus and externus, your gemellus superior and inferior, and your quadratus femoris. Their primary role is not to create a large amount of torque, but to keep the femur centrally aligned. When these muscles engage and externally rotate the femoral head, the top of the femur, is drawn posteriorly towards the back and inferiorly down into the acetabulum. The femur then hopefully externally rotates without moving forward. Rotational force is then applied close to the joint axis, improving control. So the spiral, the start of the rotation, improves control in your joint. This is why external rotation initiated from the deep rotators feels precise, stable, quiet, and controlled. Basically, we're trying to feel the thigh bone rotate outward while staying centered in the hip socket. We don't want the hips to push forward or back. This centering of the joint allows the rotation to continue through your movement and not tip in either direction, which will actually limit your rotation. When rotation is alive, it travels. When rotation is dead, everything feels heavy. This is why we want to think about our rotation as living. Not hold your turnout, freeze your hips, but can my rotation move with me as I move? Because ballet doesn't happen in straight lines. It happens in spirals and opposition. Let's make this practical. A spiral is not just twisting harder to get into a turned out position. A spiral is rotating with direction. And we can start this by standing in parallel, placing our hands on our hips, and beginning the rotation from the top of our legs. Even that smallest rotation through the foot all the way up to our hip socket is going to be more intentional than if you just force your turnout. Think about it like this. If you're walking across a room, you don't move like a hinging door. No, you move subtly, rotating through the body, naturally, allowing your joints to carry you with intention. Ballet and dance just exaggerate that natural functional movement and ask you to be honest about it. When spirals are present, the body feels intelligent, and when they're missing, the body feels like a group chat where no one's replying. Your leg goes to do one thing, your other leg does the other, your torso panics, and everything falls apart. So where do spirals begin? Not in turns, not in extensions. They begin with our plié. Plié is not just bend your knees. Plié is the first conversation between your body, gravity, and rotation. It's the moment where your system asks, can I rotate externally and yield at the same time? In a working plié, we start by bringing our heels forward, rotating at the femur, spiraling outward in the hip, and the knees follow that spiral honestly, not pressuring our legs into that position, but allowing the femur to rotate the legs to start that bend. And then as we return, connecting and maintaining that rotation that we've discovered. When you start your plie from rotation, your feet adapt instead of collapse. Your pelvis yields without dumping forward or tucking under. And your spine stays organized on top without becoming rigid and stuck. Think of the first plie as your gathering of power, connecting into the elasticity of your legs and creating spring and support for the extension back up out of the plie. When we don't start from rotation, the plie feels heavy, unstable, and quietly terrifying. This is why so many adult dancers get stuck here instead of allowing their depth in plie to fully connect to that rotation. Not because they're weak, but because they're not starting from spiral and allowing their joints to connect in the bend. I call this the plie diagnostic. Start that rotation. Find the connection in your deep rotators. Bring your heels forward into a position your body can control. Continue that rotation until your knees start to bend, and then allow the pelvis to align naturally on top as your spine continues up through the energy expanding opposite through the top of your head. If your plie is feeling heavy, your spiral is not supported. If you're feeling wobbly, your rotation isn't trusted. And if you're stiff, you're not allowing your body to be controlled by that start of spiraling through the legs. You don't fix a plie by trying to bend your knees more. You fix by allowing the spiral to start and inform your movement. And then as we stretch out of that plie, we get to tendu. Ah yes, tendu. The movement that everyone thinks is about the foot, and absolutely is not. Fondue is like a truth serum. You can't lie in a tendu. In a functional tendu, we've connected already the adductors as we've come back from our plie, engaging the inside of our legs. This then creates a standing leg spiral into the floor. So the leg that we're going to create connection with is already spiraling towards the bar. Then the working leg spirals outwards in the opposite direction as it lengthens away from our body, and then the pelvis stays responsive, not frozen and not wandering and not unsure of what to do. From our rotation in our plie, we stretch up, we connect, we engage the adductors. This then informs the rotation on both sides and allows us to connect our foot. And it's not just pointing, it's unfolding to that extension, whether we go to the front, the side, or the back. When rotation is alive, tendu looks inevitable. When it's forced, tendu looks busy. What about our adductors? Generally, our adductors are actually quite misunderstood in ballet. In a tendu front, and also a little bit to the side, adductor longus, brevis, and magnus act eccentrically and concentrically. They help to guide the femur along a controlled pathway, whether that be forward or sideways. They're also going to be stabilizing your pelvis relative to the moving leg on your standing leg. And by feeling both sides operate in an external rotation in opposition, they're contributing to the prevention of pelvic shift, as well as creating a smooth initiation and return to your starting position. This is why adductor engagement can make your leg feel lighter and more precise. But things start to change when we go to the back. As we go derriere, your deep rotators and glute medius are helping to make that connection happen. If we go into anterior tilt, we're going to lose the stability of our standing leg in that external rotation to the back. So we have to maintain a neutral pelvis as our leg rotates in opposition to our standing leg, trying to maintain our pelvis, reducing any type of drop into the hip, guiding the femur posteriorly without too much lumbar extension as we go. The deep rotators disengage, your pelvis is going to rotate or hike, your lumbar extension will substitute, and then the leg will feel heavy, and you may even get some back pain as a result. So how do we connect this? How does it all work? And here's where it gets very interesting. Ballet is built in a fundamental building block system. Everything we do at the bar builds on itself. We start our first movement with our plie, and then continuing the rotation as we stretch up. That rotation develops the muscular connection necessary for our legs to extend front, side, and back, while our standing leg actively rotates and spirals in the opposite direction. From there, we take that into the air, expanding the energy farther away from our hip. Now, here's the key point. If I go out to the front and I don't feel that energy actively engaging through my legs, it becomes dead, lifeless, and pointless. We want to feel the energy engaging, rotating, and expanding in multiple directions. Think lines of energy out away from your body, into the floor, away from your standing leg, in the opposite direction, your working leg is working as well. As we go to the front, we're increasing the rotation of our standing leg to return our working leg back to our positions. Same thing to the side, rotating the heel, rotating the legs in opposition, creating dimensional strength and connection in every direction. And as we go to the back, we're allowing our pelvis to open so that we don't try to pull back to a neutral position, but we engage the shoulders and the ribs in a spiral around towards our standing leg as our working leg goes in the opposite direction to create 0-point stability in our core. As we engage out, we're reaching our leg, thinking like our hip is a prison and our foot is trying to escape. Energy shooting out in every single direction. And then, guess what? We circle that together. So in the middle of our barre, once we've done our pliés, our tendus, our jetés, we've built the positions, and now we connect them directly through a spiraling movement by circling our leg, connecting front through écarté, through à la seconde, écarté derrière, and derrière, front, corner, side, corner, back, connecting that full circle and oppositionally rotating our standing leg while that working leg goes, so we don't have a little bit of the samba movement. And then the most beautiful exercise of all, the fondue. The fondue is your plié in 3 dimensions. So if we think about the rotation of our plié from first position, we take that into fondue, we rotate both legs at the same time, and as we extend, we don't just extend down towards the floor, we extend out and down at the same time. The spiral never completes. We continue to extend until we can't, and then we redo the spiral in the opposite direction. So as I extend out into my fondue, and then I rotate back in to create that connection, rotate to connect, rotate to connect. Part of why pointing your foot as hard as possible can actually make your leg feel lighter, because torque is being distributed across multiple joints, muscle work is being shared, and that's where the beauty of the spiral really comes together. While the leg doesn't actually become lighter, the limb's center of mass is perceived as lighter because the energy is extending all the way along the leg. Neurologically, continuing that force transmission through a spiral along your working leg creates more muscular efficiency, the nervous system perceives less threat, and your movement feels easier, not because mass has changed, but because effort has been distributed. Extension is literally the best name for this because we are trying to extend the energy from the hip all the way out through our toes. And so this is how the spiral comes together. Your deep rotators center and rotate the femur. Your knees flex into alignment, and your pelvis remains neutrally responsive. Continuing that rotation, your adductors guide your leg to the front and the side, while the force transmits and connects your deep rotators and your glute medius to go to the back, extending that energy all the way through the leg in each direction. Spiral and rotation of the plié and the rotation of our legs in opposite directions through our extensions is one coordinated system, not separate techniques. The result is that when we start everything from rotation and continue the spiral through our body, through our backs, through our legs, our plié becomes elastic, our tendu feels more efficient, and the leg feels lighter, balance improves, and not because of effort, but because you're using your biomechanics more accurately. I'll often get asked, what is going to be the best exercise that I can do for turnout? Fondues, tendus, pliés. Starting that rotation, that connection, that spiral in your ballet movement is going to fundamentally develop the strength you need to be able to do that movement better. When we flip the switch from up to down, out to in, to rotate and extend, rotate and extend, spiral and counter rotate, everything starts to make more sense in ballet. And here's where it gets really interesting, guys. If we think about dance as an expansion and a contraction, everything then becomes much easier to control. We're not just rotating and counter rotating, we're also then rotating to expand and then come back. Expand and come back. Think of it like an accordion going in and out, or a jellyfish moving through the ocean. That connection of your rotation to your movement is going to be fundamentally the point that gets you from being stiff and feeling like you can't control your movement to feeling free and artistic. When you start to connect your expansion and your contraction together with your upper body, together with the energy expanding through the top of your head, together with the rotation into your movement, extensions stop becoming just about height, but they become about continuity. Your pirouettes stop becoming about speed and start becoming about how you control and how you finish. Balance stops becoming static and becomes a continuity of that rotation spiraling up through your body. Your 2 demi-pliés at the beginning of barre scale into your jumps, your tendus scale into your extensions, and your rotation scales into your turns. We're not just stacking technique, we're growing it like a system. And so how do you practice this? Not aggressively, not angrily, and not with the emotional energy of someone trying to prove a point to their younger self. We practice with the curiosity of a child. In plié, you ask, how does the rotation travel as I yield? In tendu, you ask, how does the spiral continue without force? Force gives you short-term wins, but precision gives you a body that lasts. And here's the quiet, hopeful truth that I want adult dancers to hear. If ballet has felt hard for you, if it's felt disconnected, if it's felt like you were always one correction behind, it's not because you're too old, it's not because you started late, it's not because you missed something essential. You were just never shown the system. It's all about clarity instead of confusion, connection instead of control, and longevity instead of burnout. If you want me to go deeper on how spiral works in different elements like arabesque or extensions or pirouettes, let me know in the comments and I will dive even deeper into this spiral theory. And remember, guys, practice for many years.